back. It's the Morning Woodward Show here on the Woodward Sports Network, talking NFL Coach of the Year this season. Who is it? DeMeco Ryans, Dan Campbell. I think both have a case. And DeMeco's case is super impressive because he's doing it with a rookie quarterback, which CJ Stroud he's him, and with how he's playing. He's playing extremely well. He has some big wins. And we've had this kind of conversation, Sam, and you've been pushing for DeMeco. Kind of you're in favor of him winning Coach of the Year because you're impressed with it. I don't want to give your answer, but we've had this conversation before, and you know how I feel. I think Dan Campbell has been the front runner all year for a majority of it. And I think it should be that way for a couple of reasons. I do think it's very, very close. But when people bring up DeMeco Ryans, well, we'll just start with win total. Clearly, the Lions are 9-3 for the first time since the 1960s. So if you want to bring up record, he has that. More wins than the Houston Texans, of course, with that defense, which the defense is nowhere near complete. And if you look at the teams in the NFC that have the same record, we would look at it and say, okay, Dallas, they're in a win-now mode. They got a ton of talent. The Eagles, yeah, they're trying to go all in. The 49ers, they're all in. And then you look at the Lions and you're like, what? 9-3? They got a lot of young players. They're not even done building this thing, and they're 9-3. Like, how? The defense isn't even good. They have the worst defense of the four teams, and they're 9-3. And then you go to the storyline, like I said, 9-3 for the first time since the 60s. So you could bring up, well, the Texans have sucked 100%. I get you. I hear you. But we're talking about the Detroit Lions, guys. Like, I mean, let's not act like they're 9-3 and all of a sudden, well, yeah, they're just a good team. No, like we have not seen this. My dad has not seen this record since he's been alive. And my dad's 60. So, like, if we're going to go storyline, let's not act like Dan doesn't have a storyline as well with how the turnaround in 3 years that he's done with this team. And then if you want to go record, well, he'll have the better record. So, to me, Sam, I'm going to go with Dan Campbell. It's not a diss at DeMeco Ryans. He's done a very, very impressive job. But again, if Dan Campbell has the storyline argument, he has the franchise. It's the Detroit Lions, like the laughing stock of the league. The Texans made the playoffs years ago with Deshaun Watson and Bill O'Brien. So they were relevant. The Lions have not been relevant. They have not been. Like, this is very new territory. So I'm going to go with Dan Campbell. He deserves Coach of the Year. I don't think he should be stripped or all of a sudden get robbed of it. I don't want to go robbed because DeMeco, he has a case. But I'm leaning Dan Campbell. I think he deserves that Coach of the Year award, and I'll stand by that.
Right now, Dan Campbell's third in the race.
What?
Third.
Damn.
DeMeco Ryans, Shane Steichen. Are you really going to scoff at Shane Steichen? The Indianapolis Colts were
I'm not scoffing. I think he's third.
Okay. All right.
I have no idea what
was that? Was that a whistle? I'll blow the whistle on that play.
Oh, come on.
That's what?
Wait, are you saying that's egregious or something? Did you see the
Dan
Colts?
Campbell's third.
Dan Campbell's third right now. Dan Campbell is third, but I do think that DeMeco Ryans and Shane Steichen will cancel each other out at some point because I believe that the Coach of the Year will either be whatever AFC South team, if one of them can overtake the Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC South and win that division, hell yeah, one of them should be Coach of the Year. Because last year, do we recall that last season the Indianapolis Colts won 4 games? Do we recall that last season the Houston Texans only won 3 games? And did we recall that early on in the season the rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson for Indianapolis was out for the season and they played the first part without Jonathan Taylor? And the Indianapolis Colts, recovering from the doldrums of Matt Ryan, are now 7-5 and have a top 10 offense with Gardner Minshew at quarterback and a lot of the season with Zach Moss. And then you've got guys like Michael Pittman and rookie Josh Downs on the outside. Of course, they are 7-5. That is a major turnaround. And then we look at the Houston Texans. They had the worst. They had the second worst record in the league last year. I mean, they were absolutely terrible. They were a morbid team. And then you bring in DeMeco Ryans, you bring in a CJ Stroud, you bring in a Will Anderson, a lot of other pieces that they signed. And it's not just CJ Stroud. That's the thing. CJ Stroud is the runaway rookie of the year without a shadow of a doubt. He's having a phenomenal year. But the Houston Texans also have a top 12 scoring defense in the NFL led by Will Anderson and Jonathan Greenard, just absolute studs coming off the edge. So to me, when you look at turnarounds of teams, it has to be either Shane Steichen or or DeMeco Ryans. I get it. If Dan Campbell can lead this team to maybe 13 wins or something like that, he would have a case. But the Lions had 9 last year. And it's not any disrespect to Dan Campbell. I just don't get, Jeff, how you can just scoff, act like I'm an insane person for saying Shane Steichen.
I don't think you're insane. I just don't understand how Dan Campbell, he was the front runner all year. What happened? The Lions lose 4 in a row? What happened?
The Colts won 4 in a row.
Oh, and I'll tell you one thing. If the Lions win the NFC North, they've never done it. Is that a case?
They had 9 wins last year. The other teams had 7 combined,
out of the 3 coaches, you're going to have a coach with more wins, and he wins his division for the first time in Lions history, and he coaches the Detroit Lions. You're not giving the man the Coach of the Year award. Because the Texans came out of nowhere, which I get, but come on. Coach of the Year, and it's close. Shane Steichen's in the race. I'm not scoffing at it, but I don't understand. He'll have more wins. He has the storyline. I'm confused.
If either the Colts or the Texans win the AFC South, the coach of that team should win Coach of the Year. If neither of them do, and I would say the Lions win at least 12 games, I would be fine giving it to Dan Campbell. I'm just saying right now, you can't overlook. I mean, everybody thought that the Jacksonville Jaguars would just run away and sprint away from the division to the point where you can't even see them behind you. But we're talking about the Colts or the Texans maybe even being able to catch the Jacksonville Jaguars, who may have opened the door for the division by losing to the Bengals and for Trevor Lawrence being out for probably a little while. That would be damn impressive. I'm not saying what Dan Campbell hasn't been impressive. Dan Campbell is a damn good coach, and I want him to be the Lions coach for a long time, and the turnaround has been impressive. I just think right now he's not at the top of the list. He was, but once the Lions kind of looked a little bit more beatable, which they do than a few weeks ago, to be fair, especially with that Packers loss, it's opened the door for a team for a coach like DeMeco Ryans or Shane Steichen to steal it, especially given the fact that the Colts are now on a 4-game winning streak. We'll see how it all plays out. I just think that if I'm being objective, which is often hard to do working in Detroit and being a Lions fan, I got to say either Shane Steichen or DeMeco Ryans, but that does not take away how great Dan Campbell has been.
And I'll say this, Cody Engel says it's not the most improved coach, it's Coach of the Year. Which, again, Brian Dable won it because that roster was atrocious and they went 9-7-1. So I get that. But, I don't know why all of a sudden we act like the Texans have just been this garbage organization the last 15 years.
Well, they were garbage last year.
Just last year.
Mills.
So just last year.
So the Houston.
So give me their playoff appearances in the last 10 years or 5 years, 7 years.
They made a few.
So I'm saying as the storyline, it's the Lions.
All
dude.
right.
That's what I'm That's what I'm. And I'm not trying to make this like a DeMeco slander thing. He's been incredible. He's a damn good coach. But if the Lions win their division, win 12, 13 games, and it's the freaking Lions, how do you not just ship the award to that man's house? And then Shane and DeMeco can be honorable mentions. They'll come in second and third, however you want to shake it up. I don't. That's what I'm not understanding with this thing. If it's storyline, Dan has it. If it's wins, Dan has it.
If it's coming into a dumpster fire and turning it around,
Dan has it.
I mean, Dan has it but he already started the gradual improvement from year 1 to year 2. If you were to give it to him any year, if the Lions would have made the playoffs last year, it would have been Dan Campbell's award.
When's the last time the Texans have had 9 wins?
It hasn't been that long ago. I think 2019 they made the playoffs with Deshaun Watson.
Okay, so it's been 60 since the Lions have had 9 wins, 9-3. They've been 9-3. Excuse me.
All right.
Not 9 wins, but 9-3.
All right.
So 60 years since the Lions have been 9-3. That's got to mean something.
Dan Campbell has a case. I just say right now it's not number 1. He has a legitimate case. I'm not going to be mad if Dan Campbell wins Coach of the Year. I would actually wear that with a lot of pride. I just think, and I see a lot of people in the chat are really disagreeing with me, I think there's some slappyism to this right now, that there's some Dan Campbell worship to this right now, which I don't blame you for doing. He's a damn good coach. But Shane Steichen and DeMeco Ryans have done a hell of a job. They've turned around dumpster fires, at least dumpster fires last year, immediately. Last year, the damn Texans had Davis Mills. They were recovering from the Deshaun Watson debacle, where
and the Lions were 1-6 at the start of the season. It looked again. And I don't want to go to last year because I get it. You could tie all those things into it, but to me, it's this season, and DeMeco has done a really, really good job. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I just think I want Dan to be recognized for what he's been doing. The Lions are 9-3. Yeah, they beat the Chiefs on the road week 1, the defending Super Bowl champions. I get that. They didn't have two of their better players. I get all that. Still an impressive win. And then we're just going to be like, yeah, well, DeMeco's, they've been exciting, so we'll just give him the award.
They've been exciting. They could win the damn AFC South. It's not just about they've been exciting. Oh, those cute little adorable Colts,
here's the difference.
Here's the difference. They could win the damn division.
Texans could, the Lions will.
Fair. That's 100% fair, but there's also greater competition for those other teams as well, because the Lions have basically had this thing locked up since week 4 at this point, because the division, although it's looking a little bit better than we thought with the improvement of the Packers, is a bad division. And I'm not saying that Dan Campbell, and here's what I will say. If there's a world where Dan Campbell does not have a coach of the year and Brian Daboll does, that seems like bizarro world. I'll give you that. But it's just how the years play out.
And if we're going to go storyline, if we'll just add more to it, which I don't think it should factor a ton into it, but let's just say it does. Like, where was this organization before Dan got here? Like,
horrible.
What he's had to do and turn it around. Like, DeMeco, he's getting praise and he deserves it. But, like, let's not act like Dan didn't walk into a garbage, like just a dumpster fire. So I think he deserves Coach of the Year. I think he's done a damn good job. And again, I don't want to, just act like, well, the Lions we're supposed to be good, so they're good. Like, no, the Lions are 9-3, first time in 60 years. This man deserves praise and recognition. Now, Easy's chiming in. He says, rookie coach, rookie QB coming off the second worst record the previous season. I understand, but if we're talking like last year to this year, then I understand that. But if we're going this season, it's Coach of the Year. And if we want to factor in storyline, dude, like 9-3, first time since the 60s, they're going to win their division. They've never done that. Well, I think Dan deserves it. I do.
And he does deserve it, but does he deserve it over DeMeco Ryans or Shane Steichen? Like Daniel Wachinski, he chimes in with, I think, something that his narrative has told him but isn't true. He says, did he just say the AFC South is a better division? It absolutely is a better division than the NFC North this year. The AFC South has 3 teams that are above 500. The Jaguars, the Texans, and the Colts could all finish above 500. I know that we were told before the year that the Colts and the Texans would both be bad, but doesn't that speak to how good of a coaching job that Shane Steichen and DeMeco Ryans have done?
And those guys are damn good coaches.
Who would have thought that, Daniel?
Again, those guys,
I win, you lose.
Those guys are damn good coaches. If they beat Dallas later in the year,
that'll be a huge notch in Dan Campbell's belt for Coach of the Year. I'll give you that.
If they go on the road and beat the Cowboys, like, you got to give this man the award. Because, again,